beautiful midlife mavens. Welcome back to Midlife by Human Design. No, I did not forget to include the intro on this episode. In fact, I just decided that I'm going to experiment with not putting an intro on each episode because most people just skip it anyway. So, fuck it. Let's just dive in. I will start today's episode by saying that I have been mixed up in the undefined head soup lately. And when I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking about what's happening right now in the cosmos, what's happening on the calendar, what's happening in the world. And thinking about Martin Luther King weekend and thinking about the Human Design New Year, which is coming up on Wednesday, and thinking about the fact that it's 2026, which is the last year of this sort of epoch that we're in, according to human design prophecy, and also, I think, according to other prophecies, although I can't tell you which ones those are. So I've been listening to a lot lately about 2026 as this pivotal year, or maybe not pivotal, but it's like the the big burst before this huge change. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll record an episode on that. And so of course, I started to dive down the rabbit hole, which then led me to some articles just debunking the whole thing and saying, this isn't the way to look at incarnation cross changes and yada, yada, yada. So, what I'm talking about there is 2027, according to Ra, who is the founder of human design. 2027 marks the change of incarnation crosses, where we're moving out of the cross of planning and into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And anyway, my point here is that I've been in this real contemplative place of wondering, what is this that we're in? And watching the news and watching how much change is happening, especially here in the US, how different things look compared to the way they did even just 5 years ago, and trying to make sense of it all. And eventually, where I landed was wanting to talk about the North Node placement, actually, because the North Node placement in astrology and in human design is what we are supposed to be working toward. And you know how I love the phrase supposed to be, right? Anything that tells me I'm supposed to be doing something, I'm probably going to do the fucking opposite. But what I mean here is the nodes are like a path or a trajectory. And I'm inviting you to do the same that I invite you to do with any element of human design, which is experiment with it and use it to be curious about this life. Like, all of these systems that I find myself drawn to are essentially, for me, a way of making sense of this beautiful life that we're living and trying to deeply understand my place in it. And I think that one of the troubles of these systems is that people can fall into the same sorts of problems that they fell into when trying to escape things like organized religion, in that they can feel like check boxes or rule books that they have to follow versus just a system that you can experiment with and see what feels true for you and what doesn't. Because ultimately, your inner truth is what is most important. At least that's how I look at it. And that inner truth does need some deconstruction around what feels true to you versus what you have taken on as expectations of other people. And this brings me back around to the nodes. So the North Node is this kind of ideal, this trajectory, this path that you are on. That's sort of it's like your North Star. It's like this ideal that you're working toward throughout your life. And the South Node, by contrast, is something that you come in already having mastered. So my research tells me that it has something to do with your past lives. These are things that you've come in already mastered, and it's like old hat, and it's your comfort zone. Like you can fall back on it and feel very comfortable within it. But it can be a crutch where it keeps you back from growth and it holds you back potentially from reaching toward your North Node. So the flex is to reach to your North Node and to practice and experiment with those themes. And I see midlife as the perfect time for us to come into our North Node genius, or at least start to really try to live its ideals and see what it feels like. So I think that one thing to consider about experimenting with your North Node is that it's probably going to feel uncomfortable at first. And that's okay, to normalize that and to understand that this is your growth edge. This is, where by design you are meant to be curious and to make those first steps. And if you master it, then maybe in the next lifetime, it'll become more of your South Node theme. So, a couple of things to note about your North Node in terms of astrology and human design. So, we remember astrology is part of human design. And so, I would encourage you to actually go to my website if you don't already have both your astrology and your human design chart, so you can see what are your North Node placements. And your astrology is going to tell you what sign it's placed in. And what you're looking for are the horseshoes. So the horseshoe shape is the North Node, the one that's like, uh, it looks like an N. And then the South Node is the upside down horseshoe. And if you look on your astrology chart, you'll see that they are placed opposite one another in your chart. And so you'll have, for example, your North Node may be in Capricorn and your South Node may be in Cancer, which is the case for me. So when you are thinking about this from an astrology point of view, you're thinking, okay, so if my North Node is in Capricorn, for example, then these are some of the themes that I can be working toward in this lifetime. And Capricorn are themes like groundedness and structure and feeling like you have a container for your big ideas, as an example. Whereas Cancer, South Node, is more about emotional intelligence and cyclical living and being deeply aware of your inner child and nurturing and being the mother figure. So it's not to say that your South Node is something you want to leave behind. It's more like you're already coming in with that mastery, so you don't really need to work on it, so to speak. It doesn't need potentially as much contemplation as your North Node. And for me, things like structure And being able to appreciate structures, I think, is definitely something that I contemplate and also is uncomfortable for me because I very much fight against structures or against anything that feels very black and white. I'm an Aquarius rising. I have the belief that we are not meant to live inside of any one system, and there is no one size fits all, and there's always gray area. So, what kind of container can be supportive for that is basically the question. So if you look at your chart and see where is the placement, like what sign is the placement in, then you can get a sense of what are the themes that are inherent in that sign. So if you have a north node in Aries, for example, then your lesson is around your self awareness and choosing yourself, without apology, just like putting yourself first. Maybe it has something to do with that. If your North Node Taurus, for example, I'm just going to go around the zodiac and give you a quick example of some of the themes that might be relevant for you if your North Node is placed in each sign. So in Taurus is maybe around groundedness and embodiment. And, Taurus is very much about embodiment. I think of Taurus as loving food to the nth degree, sitting and savoring a delicious meal is such a Taurus kind of thing. North Node in Gemini might be inviting you to be curious or flexible or stretch your intelligence muscles, really get curious about learning and open mindedness. Cancer, I mentioned emotional stability, mothering, nurturing yourself. North Node in Leo could be more about yourself and getting out there in front of people, being creative, being willing to be seen. North Node in Virgo could be discerning, is a great word to use for a Virgo North Node, as well as being in service to what feels important to you. What are the details that feel important to you? Where might you get a little more organized in your life? North Node in Libra, relationships, relational questions, relational community, feeling balanced. Obviously, this is the scales. North Node in Scorpio, here we go deep. What in life is inviting you to go deep, especially with your emotions? How can you bring forth a courage in relationship to your emotions, and where is there potentially an intimacy being called forth from you? North Node in Sagittarius, traveling, trusting your inner wisdom, living your truth. Those are great examples of Sag North Node. Capricorn, I mentioned structure, responsibility, taking responsibility for your life, for the structure, being self led. Those are all examples of Capricorn. Aquarius North Node is authentic and visionary and innovative. And North Node in Pisces would be very intuitive, inviting you into your intuitive realm, deep self trust, surrender, and even spirituality. So, those are some examples for each of the signs for your North Node. And then you can go deeper into this exploration by looking at the house placement. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you here that I still go back and forth between the different uh, house approaches. That's not the word, but the different houses. So right now, my website is set up for Placidus, which is supposed to be the most accurate for each individual. And then whole sign, that's what astrologers use when they're doing the collective readings or whatever. So if you downloaded your chart and you are looking at your astrological chart, then look at the house where it is. And for me, for example, Capricorn, my North Node in Capricorn, in Placidus, it's in the 11th house, I believe. And that is all about community and social change and hopes and dreams. And then in whole sign, it's in my 12th house, which is more about spirituality and surrender and intuition. And I find that very interesting because I can see both of those things. I definitely see both of those themes unfolding in my life as I make my way further and further into midlife. And I think that's also a pretty natural thing when we hit midlife and we sort of wake up to the conditioning that we've been under for so many years. So I think that no matter what house your North Node lives in, it's an invitation to take some of the midlife themes that you're experiencing around being done with the prescriptive living and the box checking and the expectations of others. So taking the themes of midlife and thinking about, okay, how can I use my North Node to help me contemplate what this next chapter can be? What might it look like for me? Where do I still have growth available for me? Because look, we're in midlife. We are not in the end of life. And in fact, I think we're maybe at the end of a certain way of living, but at the very beginning of another way of living, which, yes, to me, invites more spirituality because it invites you to have a deeper understanding of yourself and who you came here to be and what that actually feels like. And it's a time when we're no longer accepting the way that we've done things for years and years and years if we were always doing it for some sort of external validation. It just doesn't sit with us, and for women especially, we get physical symptoms reminding us that it doesn't sit with us. So we're in the midst of this fresh energy in that it is the new year. January 1st has come and gone for 2026. The Human Design New Year is on Wednesday, the 21st of January. And we also have a Capricorn new moon happening Sunday, yesterday, as of the day of this recording drop. But on Monday, if you're listening to this in real time, we'll still sort of be in the energy of that new moon. And this new moon is so deeply supported in terms of setting intentions around Capricorn themes. So, thinking about, okay, where is my North Node placement? And are there some intentions that I can set that are supported, deeply supported by other planetary placements, as well as the moon being in Capricorn, for a new start? And then how can I let that play out over the next 6 months and check back in June and see, okay, how much growth has happened? So, using myself as an example, if I'm looking at my North Node placement in Capricorn, and I know that it's themes around structure and responsibility and being self led, how can I invite that in the next 6 months? Like, where can I start to apply those things in small ways? And remember, I'm going back to the idea that I mentioned many times is that 1-degree pivot. Where can I start building in little habits that will help me to create more structure and take more responsibility for the things that I just let float in the wind? And the other thing that I want to circle way back around to is that we talked about your North Node placement in terms of astrology here. And up till now, it's all been about where is it in your sign and where is it in the house system. And then what human design does is dials it down even more. It's like cranking the Peloton whatever you call it, knob thingy to the right just a little bit. It's kind of the same idea. So my North Node placement is in Capricorn. It is in the 11th or 12th house, depending on which system I'm using. And it is also in gate 58. So you can look on now your human design chart, and if you look at the right hand column, it'll give you your North Node placement for your conscious design. And then your North Node placement on your unconscious design will be on the left hand side. And remember, you're looking for the one that's horseshoe shaped like an N. Okay, it's actually the third placement underneath your sun and your earth. So that North Node placement is going to tell you in your conscious side which gate placement. So what is the exact energy of Capricorn for in this example? And what's interesting is that it's in gate 58, which is all about joy. Gate 58 is very much an embodied energy, yes, and it's very much about joyfulness. And it's interesting because I think I had set my word of the year as joy a few years ago. And I said it again as joy this year. And I have such a different kind of viewpoint on it. And I think it'll be an interesting experiment this year, thinking about joy and how to make that a kind of more structured part, a more routine part of my life. So I'm inviting you to do the same. Look at that gate placement and see, like, what is this specifically inviting in for me? And look, sometimes the gates may seem at odds with the sign that they're a part of. And again, this is where I go back to it's a system and it's an experiment. I don't think we can say with any degree of certainty, undefined head here speaking, that anything is black and white 100%. And so when there are pieces that feel a little less aligned or like, that doesn't quite make sense to me, then I think it's just an opportunity for contemplation. Like, okay, for example, I think my placement is a perfect example because gate 58 is all about joy. And when I think about structure, that is not what I think about. So, so it's an opportunity for you to get curious, like, okay, how might those two concepts come together and serve me? Because ultimately, this is about being in service of your growth. So, a couple of last things I want to say about this idea of the North Node and your growth in midlife. One is that obviously, this time of life is a time for a lot of reevaluation. A lot of shit is changing. Your kids are leaving the house. You're no longer needed as much as you once were as a parent. And that has been, if you're a parent, a huge part of your identity for the last, whatever, 20 ish years. Your jobs may be changing, your relationships, whether you're still in the same partnership that you've been in for decades, or whether you're considering leaving it, or whether you have left it. Like the ground tends to shift during this phase of life. And so there's a huge part of midlife that's about letting go of old identities, even just our physical selves, the way we used to look and the way that we look now. It's different. And that's also part of the beauty, I think, and the gift of this time of life is like, no, we don't look like we did when we were 20. And what is the benefit of that? Regardless of what society is telling us that we need all kinds of plumpers and fillers when it comes to our face. And then when it comes to our bodies, we need GLPs and all the things to make us lose weight. Besides all of that noise, what is the beauty of your body changing? The earned wisdom that we can literally see on our faces, that is the beauty. And so coming back to appreciation and gratitude for ourselves, and this time of year, this new year time of life that we get this reset every year in the midst of winter when it is a time to rest. It's an invitation, and I think using your North Node to get curious about, what might need a reset? What am I ready to change in this midlife phase? And how can I start honoring what feels right for me if I have continued to forsake that over and over and over again? So I invite you to look at your North Node, run your charts on my website for free, lorilisai.com. Go to get your chart, and you can toggle to run your astrology and your human design chart. If you want to dive into this with me and contemplate it together and see, like, what might these things mean? What questions might I have for you to contemplate to help you really dive into these themes? Then I encourage you to get on my email list because I've been sending out some opportunities for readings, which I don't always do, but I've been kind of digging them lately. I've just been wanting to get more into that vibe and spend some more time helping you, like, light your shit up, basically, like, crack shit open, I guess, is the way that I wanna say it, because I think that's what readings can do, and I just love diving into charts because I love seeing the beauty in you that oftentimes you don't see yourself. Oftentimes, it's things that you miss. And I think midlife is the perfect time to dive in and see, okay, what is possible? What's my North Node asking of me? So, anyway, get on my email list. I'll drop the link in the show notes and snag a reading. And I just wanted to say happy MLK Day. Take a moment to send out some love to the world, some gratitude for MLK, who in his time here was trying to change our world for the better. And to all of those humans who are doing that same good work, including you, make time to give yourself some gratitude during this week. And I wish you so much luck with this dive into your North Node in terms of maybe you don't need luck, but like I want you to, I encourage you to just lean into it. So that's what I have for you today. And I am wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the courage to be who you came here to be.